Hello students of Algebra 2, this is Mr. Hotard. This video right here is going to be reviewing the square root method that we learned about in the last one, but also we're going to be introducing something called complex numbers, finding solutions of quadratic equations involving complex numbers. That sounds exciting. So this first one right here, all right, I'm just getting x by itself. So this is just a quick recap of what we did last time. If I get x by itself, it only has one x in the problem, so I could just solve the equation. I can use the square root method. If I subtract 8 from both sides, that's 2x squared equals 136 minus 8, that's 128. And then I could divide both sides by 2, have x squared equals 128 divided by 2, that's 64. Now how do you get rid of the squared? You square root it. And what's the square root of 64? It is 8, but remember when you take square root of both sides, you get two answers to this problem. X equals positive and negative 8, because 8 squared and negative 8 squared would both give you 64. So I want you to pause the video right now, try the other three problems. I hope you did it. Okay, so let's look at these. Number 2, you should get this. You add the 4 to both sides, give you negative 42. Divide by negative 7, you're going to get positive 6. Take the square root of both sides. There is no square root of 6, so the answer is just plus or minus square root of 6. Or at least there isn't any nice easy answer for that. Now, for the number 3. All right, this one, you subtract the 2, give you 120. Divide by 6, that's 20. Then take the square root of both sides. Now, you get square root of 20. So you might be tempted to just say plus or minus square root of 20, but you could actually split that up into square root of 4 times the square root of 5. So your answer is going to be plus or minus 2 square root of 5. Now, I'm interested, you can't tell me because it's a video, it doesn't work that way, but kind of curious about what you got when you worked out number 4. All right, problem number 4, you start by adding the 1, gives you negative 28. 7x squared equals negative 28. Then you divide by the 7. You get negative 4. Now, when you take the square root, what's the square root of negative 4? I'll give you a hint. The answer is not plus or minus 2, because 2 squared does not give you negative 4. Negative 2 squared does not give you negative 4. There is no real solution to this, but there is an answer. The answer, we would write x equals plus or minus 2i. Now, you might be thinking, what on earth is that? What is I? I is an imaginary number. It's not a real number, all right? It's an imaginary number, but I want you to go ahead and fill this in right here. I is the square root of negative 1. The square root of negative 1. Now, is there a real number that's the square root of negative 1? No, there is no number times itself that gives you negative 1. So why on earth do we have this? Well, it's not a real number. In fact, we use the letter I because it's imaginary. It's I for imaginary. But you could use this not real number to solve some real life problems that we'll see in a little while. Now, I squared. I is the square root of negative 1. When you multiply a square root number times itself, all right, it just takes the square root off. So I squared is just negative 1. That's going to be important later on. All right, but all these complex numbers, it's a complex number if it has I in it. Every complex number can be written in the form A plus BI. A plus BI, where A is just some number. A is the real part of your answer. And then the whole BI, that's the imaginary part. Imaginary part. All right, so any complex number can be written in this form. So like 7 plus 2i, something like that would be a complex number. All right, so basically what does this mean for us? Basically what it means is anytime you have a negative under the square root, you're going to put I in your answer. Other than that, you work the problem exactly the same way. Like square root of 4, you get plus or minus 2. You just put an I in your answer when there's a negative under the square root. All right, that's the only difference. So if you look at these bottom problems where I'm simplifying the radicals, I would simplify these just like we did last time. You want to try to split this up into a perfect square number. So 384, I could split that up into, actually can split it up into 64. 64 times 6. All right, but since there's a negative under the square root, what's that mean for my answer? It's going to have an I in it. It's not a real number. but I'm still working it the same way. What's the square root of 64? It's 8. Is there a square root of 6? No, there is not. Now, you'd have 8, you have square root of 6, and you have I. Officially, the order you write it in doesn't matter. Don't put the I under the square root, but the official way, the fancy socially accepted way of writing this would be 8I square root of 6. Just normally, the official way of writing it would be you write your number, then you write your I, then you write your square root number. But if you told me 8 square root of 6 and then put I on the end, that would not be wrong. All right, so if you look at number 7, square root of negative 32. Again, there's a negative, so I know I'm going to have I in the answer. It's not a real number, but I could split 32 up into what times what? Well, there's 4 times 8, but it'll be quicker to use 16 and 2. Square root of 16 times the square root of 2, and I just know I'm going to have I in my answer because there's a negative. And so square root of 16 is 4. My answer would be 4I square root of 2. Okay. So I want y'all to pause the video now for a second. Try the other two. I hope you did. Okay, let's see if you got them right. Now, square root of 320. I could split that up into, the easiest way would be 64 and 5. You may have tried 4 and something or 16 and something, but if you do use those numbers, you'd have to split what you have up some more. It's faster to use 64 and 5. Now, so I'm going to get square root of 64 is 8. Square root of 5, do I need I in this one? No, I do not, because when do you actually have I in your answer? If there's a negative under the square root. There is no negative here. So this one is just 8 square root of 5. This one's a real answer. And then this last problem, now you might be thinking, okay, I get how to work this out. What do I do with this negative 4? You multiply this negative 4 times whatever you get over here. So square root of 75, I could split that up into 25 times 3. Will I have I in this answer? Yes, I will. There's a negative under the square root, so I will have I here. So square root of 25, that's going to be 5I square root of 3. But that's not the final answer, because what have I not used yet? The negative 4. So let's bring that down. Let's multiply that. So what is negative 4 times 5I square root of 3? It's going to be negative 20I square root of 3. Negative 20I square root of 3. All right, now, for you at home, it's not the back. It's just the next page. But we're not going to do the whole section of notes today. We're going to do these last two examples, 10 and 11, and then the rest of these examples will be in another video. Will be for another day. All right, but I want to look at these two. Just solving these equations using the square root method, just like what we've been doing before. All right, so if I'm getting x by itself, I need to get rid of plus 2. I would subtract the 2, have 4x squared equals, that's going to be negative 33. I would divide by 4. Cancel that, so I got x squared equals, now 4 will not divide evenly into this, so let's leave it as negative 33 over 4, and just take the square root. So I'm going to take the square root of top and the square root of bottom. Will I have I in this answer? Yes, I will. So I'm going to x equals 2 answers, plus or minus. I have I, then I have square root of 33. There's nothing I can do. I can't split that up. But I can do the bottom. What's the square root of 4? It's just 2. So my answer would be x equals plus or minus I square root of 33 over 2. And then this last one, if I'm getting k by itself, I would subtract the 2. 5k squared equal to negative 10. Now what? Divide by the 5. K squared equal to negative 2. Now take the square root of both sides. I've got a negative under the square root. What's that mean? It means I have I in the answer. It's not a real number. All right, can you do anything with square root of 2? No, you cannot. So my answer is going to be k equals plus or minus I square root of 2. That's all I can do with that. Okay, so again, the rest of these problems, operations with complex numbers, we will tackle in another video. I will see you guys later. Hotard out.